Before we continue, pause for a moment and remember this clearly. Everything you are about to hear is based on real events, real people, real fear, real cases that left families shaken, divided communities, and changed lives forever. In part 1, we followed the rise of two demonologists whose work pulled the unseen into the public eye. We explored houses where families said they were never alone, objects that were locked away, not because they were valuable, but because people believed they were dangerous, and families who claimed that something followed them, watched them, and refused to let go. Those cases made them famous. They brought attention. They brought believers. But they also brought something else: doubt. Because when stories like these grow too big, the world begins to ask questions. Hard questions. Uncomfortable questions. Before we go any further, subscribe to this channel now. Because what you are about to hear next is where everything changes. This is the part of the story most people never talk about. Belief is powerful in the dark. Fear is convincing when you are alone. But when these cases stepped into the public eye, everything shifted. What happens when fear meets the law? What happens when something unseen is forced into a courtroom, under bright lights, surrounded by skeptics? What happens when faith, testimony, and fear are no longer enough? Because this story does not stay in haunted houses. It moves into courtrooms, into headlines, into public judgment. Careers are questioned. Reputations are tested. And one case, in particular, would shock an entire nation and change history forever. This is where belief collides with proof, where critics grow louder, where the truth becomes harder to see. This is where the story turns. Not everyone accepted the Warrens' conclusions. As their fame grew, so did the scrutiny. Skeptics questioned their methods, their interpretations, and even their motives. Scientists, journalists, and investigators argued that many of the events the Warrens reported could be explained by coincidence, imagination, or human error. Some suggested that fear itself could create the experiences families described. One of the most publicized moments of doubt came with the so-called "devil made me do it" case. In 1981, a man named Arne Cheyenne Johnson was accused of killing his landlord in Connecticut. His defense claimed that he had been possessed at the time of the crime. The Warrens supported this claim, stating that possession, in their experience, could influence human behavior. The court, however, did not accept this defense. Johnson was convicted of manslaughter. The trial made headlines around the world, and it was the first time demonic possession was formally cited in an American courtroom. The case highlighted the tension between belief and evidence. To the Warrens, it was proof that the unseen world could reach into ordinary lives in terrifying ways. To skeptics, it was a story without verifiable facts, a mix of fear and folklore used in an attempt to explain an ordinary crime. The courtroom became a stage where faith, fear, and law collided, and no clear answer emerged. Critics also examined the Warrens' other famous cases. They pointed out inconsistencies in timelines, exaggerations in media accounts, and the role of publicity in shaping perception. Some researchers argued that the couple selectively reported events that supported their interpretations while dismissing evidence that contradicted them. Yet, despite these criticisms, the Warrens maintained that their work was genuine. They insisted that their goal was to help families understand and cope with experiences they could not explain, not to create fear or profit from it. The media played a powerful role. Every book, interview, and television appearance amplified the stories, often mixing fact with dramatization. The public fascination grew, but so did skepticism. Families who worked with the Warrens sometimes praised their dedication, while others questioned whether the events were exaggerated over time. The line between reality and legend blurred, and the Warrens' reputation became a mix of admiration and controversy. Still, the Warrens continued their investigations. They documented cases carefully, often keeping detailed logs, photographs, and audio recordings. They consulted with religious authorities when necessary. They treated each claim seriously, regardless of how extraordinary it seemed. Even when faced with doubt, they refused to back down. The tension between belief and skepticism was a defining feature of their careers. On one side were families who felt relief and understanding. On the other were critics who demanded evidence and questioned every claim. In this space between faith and doubt, the Warrens built their legacy, one that remains debated even today. Some people viewed the Warrens as pioneers of paranormal research. Others saw them as storytellers, exaggerating or misinterpreting events. But both perspectives agree on one thing. Their work captured the imagination of millions, and it forced people to ask questions about what might exist beyond the ordinary. The courtroom battles, the media scrutiny, and the criticism did not end their work. Instead, it defined it. The Warrens were no longer just investigators. They were symbols. Symbols of fear, curiosity, and the unknown. Their cases became testaments to the tension between what people believe and what they can prove. Ed Warren passed away in 2006, after decades devoted to investigating the unexplained. Lorraine continued their work alone, speaking publicly, writing books, and sharing stories from their investigations, until her own death in 2019. Their lives were filled with fascination, controversy, and a relentless pursuit of understanding the unknown. Together, they spent more than half a century examining what most people could not see, recording thousands of cases, and trying to help families who were terrified, confused, or desperate for answers. The Warrens' Occult Museum remained one of the most mysterious aspects of their legacy. Inside were the objects they had collected over the years, items linked to reported hauntings, possessions, and unexplained phenomena. Each object, they claimed, carried a history, a story of fear, danger, and the unknown. The museum was not open to the public casually. It was a place meant to protect, to preserve, and to remind people that some events are far stranger than they can imagine. Visitors described the museum as quiet, heavy, almost as if the air itself remembered the incidents that had occurred elsewhere. Their work inspired countless books, films, and documentaries. Movies like the Conjuring series brought the Warrens' name to audiences worldwide, mixing fact and dramatization. While many events in the films were fictionalized for storytelling, the core cases, the families, the reports, the investigations, were rooted in the documentation and experiences of Ed and Lorraine Warren. Their stories reached beyond newspapers and local reports, shaping how the modern world perceives hauntings, demonic possession, and the paranormal. Even decades later, debate continues. Skeptics examine their methods, the evidence they presented, and the interpretations they made. Believers praise their dedication, compassion, and courage. Families who worked with the Warrens often attest to the relief and understanding they provided during terrifying experiences. One thing is certain: the influence of Ed and Lorraine Warren is undeniable. They became symbols of the struggle between the known and the unknown, the seen and the unseen. Their legacy is complicated. It is not a simple story of heroes, nor is it a story of frauds. It is a tale of belief colliding with doubt, of human curiosity facing the limits of understanding, and of two people who devoted their lives to trying to explain what most could not. Their work reminds us that the world may hold more mysteries than we can ever measure, and that fear, curiosity, and wonder are closely intertwined. Today, the Warrens are gone, but the questions they left behind remain. What lies beyond what we can see? How much of the world is governed by forces we cannot explain? And, most haunting of all, how many stories like theirs are still unfolding, just beyond the reach of our understanding? Even in death, Ed and Lorraine Warren continue to influence the conversation about the supernatural. Their names remain synonymous with fear, fascination, and the pursuit of truth in a world full of uncertainty. Their cases, their writings, and their warnings echo through history, leaving us to wonder, how much of what we call impossible is actually real? The story of Ed and Lorraine Warren is not just about hauntings, dolls, or houses. It is about the line between belief and doubt, the boundary between what we see and what we cannot. Their lives remind us that the world is full of mysteries, some terrifying, some fascinating, and some that may never be fully understood. They documented thousands of cases, helped countless families, and left behind a legacy that continues to challenge the way we think about the unseen. Skeptics question their work. Believers honor it. But for everyone who has heard their story, one question remains. How much of the unknown is still out there, waiting to be discovered? Even today, decades after their deaths, Ed and Lorraine Warren continue to spark curiosity, fear, and wonder. Their names remain etched into the history of paranormal investigation, a reminder that some mysteries are bigger than any one person, bigger than any one explanation. If you want to uncover more real-life stories that will make you question the world around you, make sure to subscribe now and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what's coming next.